Hey everyone, this is Aaron from MTGChallengers and welcome to another Magic the Gathering highlights video. For this match we have Alex playing Mono Green Devotion going up against Evan playing Abzan Graveyard. Alex won the die roll for game 1 and took a mulligan down to 6 cards. He started the game off with a Forest and an Elvish Mystic. Evan laid down a Windswept Heath and passed the turn. Alex played a Nykthos Shrine to Nyx and cast a Voyaging Satyr. He then poked Evan for 1 with his Mystic, taking him to 19. Evan lost another life at the end of Alex's turn to crack his Heath and fetched up a Forest. For Evan's turn, he played a Swamp and cast a Sylvan Caryatid. Alex played a second Forest. He then cast a Polychronos World Eater. Evan laid down a basic Plains on his next turn, getting him up to 4 mana and cast a Siege Rhino. When the Rhino entered the battlefield, it took 3 life from Alex, dropping him to 17 and took Evan up to 21. Alex played another Forest and swung with Polychronos for 5. Evan chose to take it, going to 16. On Evan's next turn, he resolved a Whip of Erebos, giving his creatures lifelink. At the end of Evan's turn, Alex tapped a Forest and his Mystic and activated Nykthos, giving him a total of 6 green mana. He then used his Voyaging Satyr to untap Nykthos and activate it again for 4, using 2 mana in the pool for a total of 8 mana. He then cast a Chord of Calling for 5. He ultimately decided to fetch a 4-drop though, Nylea, God of the Hunt. For his turn, he went straight to combat and swung with Polychronos again. Evan chose to chump him with his Rhino, gaining him 4 life from the lifelink. In post-combat, Alex activated his Nykthos again for 5 green mana, untapping it and reactivating it with a Satyr, and tapped all of his other available sources for a total of 10 mana, allowing him to cast a Genesis Hydra for 8. Unfortunately for him, he revealed 7 Forests in a row and only got to get another Elvish Mystic onto the field. He did get to shuffle his library and pass the turn. Evan cast a second Sylvan Caryatid on his turn. He then cast a Satyr Wayfinder, revealing the top 4 cards of his library, and got a Temple of Malady into his hand. He then played the Temple as his land for turn, allowing him to scry. He chose to leave the card on top of his library. Alex cast another Elvish Mystic, upping his devotion to 9. He then activated his Nykthos, untapping it with his Voyaging Satyr and reactivating it, getting him 16 mana. He also tapped his 2 Mystics, bringing the count up to 18. He then played another Nykthos as his land for turn. He sacrificed his old one and activated the new one, giving him a total of 25 green mana. This allowed him to monstrous his Polychronos for 12, making it a 17/17 creature. Alex knocked off Evan's Wayfinder as it was the only legal target, but it did deal 1 damage to Polychronos, gaining Evan a life. For combat, he swung with Polychronos, Genesis Hydra, and Nylea for a total of 31 damage. Evan chumped the Polychronos with his Caryatid and took the damage from the other 2 creatures, going to 7. This was a misplay, however, as the Polychronos had trample from Nylea and should have trampled over the Caryatid for well over lethal. It didn't end up mattering though, since Alex just ran him over on his next combat, giving him the win and taking them to game 2. Welcome to game 2. Alex mulled down to 6 cards again and Evan took the play. He laid down a Sandstep Citadel for his first turn. Alex played a Forest and passed it back. Evan played a Land War Wastes and cast a Commune with the Gods, revealing the top 5 cards of his library. He chose to put the Sylvan Caryatid into his hand and sent the other 4 to the grave. Alex just drew his card and passed, stuck on 1 land. Evan played a second Citadel and cast a Sylvan Caryatid. Alex drew and played a Nykthos Shrine to Nyx, allowing him to cast a Caryatid of his own. Evan missed his land drop next turn and cast a second Commune with the Gods. He chose to get a Banishing Light from it. He laid down a Windswept Heath and passed the turn. Alex played a second Forest and tapped out for a Polychronos World Eater. At the end of his turn, Evan paid a life to crack his Heath and fetched a Forest. While still at Alex's end step, he exiled 3 lands from his grave and cast a Murderous Cut, killing Polychronos. On his turn, he resolved a Siege Rhino, taking Alex to 17 and him up to 22. Alex resolved a Courser of Kruphix on his next turn. He revealed a Forest on the top of his library, allowing him to play it, going to 18. He then made a bit of a misplay by casting a Hunt the Hunter, giving his Courser +2/+2 and making it fight Evan's Siege Rhino. This still only brought it up to 4 power, failing to kill the Rhino. He then passed the turn. Evan played an Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth, making all lands on the battlefield swamps. He then tapped out to cast a See the Unwritten with a Ferocious trigger on it. From the top 8 cards, he got to get a second Siege Rhino and a Nyx Fleece Ram onto the battlefield. This took Alex to 15 and Evan up to 25. For combat, he swung with his first Rhino for 4, which Alex decided to take. Alex cast a second Courser of Kruphix and played a Forest from his hand, going to 13. He then activated Nykthos, giving him 5 green mana and cast another Polychronos. Evan went up to 26 at his upkeep from the Ram. He then played another Land War Wastes and cast a Hornet Queen. This got him 4 1/1 flying tokens with Death Touch. For combat, he swung for 8 with his Rhinos. Alex blocked and killed one with Polychronos and took the other, going to 9 life. Alex started his next turn by activating Nykthos for 7 green mana. He then played a second Nykthos, sacrificing his tapped one and gaining 2 life. He activated the new one for another 7 mana, giving him 14. He used 13 of it to activate Polychronos' monstrous ability for 6, picking off Evan's Hornet Queen and all of the tokens. Polychronos himself died due to their Death Touch. He had 1 mana left in the pool, so he finished the play by tapping a Sylvan Caryatid and casting a Voyaging Satyr. Evan went to 27 life at his upkeep. He then cast another Commune with the Gods, getting another Hornet Queen into his hand. He then cast a Banishing Light, exiling Alex's Voyaging Satyr. He finished his turn by bringing Alex down to 7 with his Rhino. Alex played another Forest, gaining him 2 more life. He then activated Nykthos for 5, tapped another Forest for 6, and cast a Scuttling Doom Engine. Evan went to 28 life at his upkeep. He played a third Sandstep Citadel and resolved another Hornet Queen, getting him another round of tokens. Alex played a Forest from the top, going to 11. For combat, he swung for 6 with his Doom Engine, which Evan chose to take, going to 22. He cast an Elvish Mystic and passed the turn. Evan went to 23. He then cast an Elspeth, Sun's Champion. He used her +1 ability, getting himself 3 1/1 soldiers. For combat, he swung with his Rhino and Hornet Queen tokens for a total of 10 damage. Alex chumped the Rhino with his Caryatid. 1 still trampled over, and the tokens flew over for 6, dropping him to 4. Alex played a Forest from the top, gaining 2 life. He then killed Elspeth with his Doom Engine. Evan went up to 24 at his upkeep and then swung Alpha for lethal, giving him the win and taking them to Game 3. Welcome to Game 3. Alex took the play and mulled to 6 for the 3rd time in a row. He started things off with a Forest and an Elvish Mystic. Evan played a Temple of Malady, scrying 1, and chose to leave the card on top. Alex poked Evan for 1 with his Elvish Mystic. He then laid down a second Forest and cast a Sylvan Caryatid. Evan cast an Elvish Mystic of his own. He then played a Sandstep Citadel as his land for turn. Alex missed his land drop but was still able to cast a Polychronos World Eater. Evan played a Land War Wastes and resolved a Siege Rhino. This took Alex to 17 and Evan to 22. Alex played a third Forest and swung with Polychronos. Evan chose to take the 5 damage, going to 17. In post-combat, Alex cast an Nylea, God of the Hunt, which entered as a creature. Evan played another Temple of Malady and chose to keep the card on top. He then cast a Banishing Light, exiling Polychronos. This also took 2 Devotion away from Alex, causing Nylea to cease being a creature. Evan swung in for 4 with his Rhino, which Alex chose to take, going to 13. Alex just played another Forest and passed the turn. Evan laid down a Plains. He then tapped out for a See the Unwritten with a Ferocious trigger, revealing the top 8 cards of his library. The only creature among them was an Ashen Rider, which Evan put onto the battlefield. It triggered, allowing Evan to exile Nylea. He then swung in for another 4. Alex chose to take it. At the end of Evan's turn, Alex cast a Court of Calling for 3, fetching up a Courser of Crufix. He revealed an Arbor Colossus on top of his library, which Alex drew and played on his turn. Evan resolved a second Siege Rhino, bringing Alex to 6 and himself up to 20. He then cast a Nyx Fleece Ram. For combat, he swung with his first Rhino and his Ashen Rider. Alex chose to block and kill the Rhino with his Colossus and took 5 damage from the Rider, going down to 1 life. Alex just drew and passed for his next turn. Evan went up to 21 at his upkeep with his Ram. He then swung Alpha for a total of 10 damage. Alex thought for a while and chose to block Elvish Mystic with his Courser. He then triple blocked the Rhino with his other 3 creatures. Before damage was dealt, he tapped his 4 Forests and 2 Dorks for 6 mana and activated Arbor Colossus' Monstrosity, giving it 3 +1/+1 counters and destroying the Ashen Rider. This did cause the Rider to trigger again, exiling the Colossus. As a result, Alex took no damage and all creatures but the Rhino and the Courser died. Evan cast a Sylvan Caryatid and a second Ram before passing the turn. With a Hornet Queen on top of his library, Alex desperately cast a Genesis Hydra for 1, allowing him to shuffle his library. Unfortunately, he just revealed another Arbor Colossus, so he passed the turn. Evan went to 23 at his upkeep from the Rams. He then cast a Commune with the Gods, revealing the top 5 cards of his library, and got another Caryatid into his hand. For combat, he swung for 4 with his Rhino. Alex chumped it with his Courser, which had 4 toughness, so it prevented any trample damage. In post-combat, Evan cast a second Sylvan Caryatid. Alex just cast a Voyaging Satyr and passed the turn. Evan went to 25 at his upkeep and played a Forest. He then hard-casted an Ashen Rider, exiling the Voyaging Satyr. He swung for 4 with the Rhino. Alex blocked it, but 3 trampled over, giving Evan the win to the game and the match. So that's it for this highlights video. If you enjoyed it, feel free to check out the full gameplay as well as the comments. commentary. To see the lists for these decks and others, be sure to check out our deck techs and like our Facebook page for announcements, updates, and other behind-the-scenes information. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, subscribe for more Magic the Gathering content.